feel like I could teach a course on how to use it. Like that's how complicated it is. I think there's a couple of common misconceptions when planning Disney. In typical Disney fashion, they don't make it necessarily straightforward.
Welcome to the Enchanted Ears podcast,
where we discuss anything and everything Disney.
I'm Angela.
And I'm Joe, and on today's episode, we're going to be talking with Becky from Disney in Your Day and Castle Dreams Travel about some tips and tricks and things to consider when planning your Walt Disney World vacation.
Yeah, I think that there are some really good nuggets that are going to be in here for you to help you out.
Yeah, it's like, hey, it's the start of the year. It's a good time to start planning a trip. I will say
if your New Year's resolution was to plan more Disney trips,
exactly.
which probably always is.
I will say, though, I learned from doing this and from Becky that you should really be planning like a year out. So I was thinking like, hey, this is great if you're planning your 2024 trip. Not that it's too late to plan like a summer trip or something like that, because there's a lot of good deals. But it's almost like this is your planning for 2025. So maybe plan a late 24 and then start thinking about 25. You can never have too many Disney trips on the books.
I mean, that's true. But just thinking about planning for next year stresses me out. Not that I'm the one that does it.
I was going to say, let's be honest here. You plan about 0 Disney trips.
I've planned a total of 0 trips.
So
maybe kind of sort of one trip, because I went by myself one time.
It's weird, though. You talk about planning stressing you out. I feel like it comforts me and it calms me down. So, like, I'm curious where our listeners, like, fall on that, like, line of, do you get stressed by planning the trips? Do you get comfort by planning trips? And if you're in a relationship like we are, like, do you have somebody that's like the planner and somebody that's not the planner?
Yeah, I was going to say, we have a very symbiotic relationship.
It works out well.
You like that control and you like that aspect.
It's
and that
fun.
To me is not fun. Like, I am 100% a person that I would just go straight to the travel agent and say, hey, look, here's what I want.
You don't even like when I tell you,
like,
out. This is where we're eating. You're like, don't tell me this far in advance.
Well, it's because
tell me when we get there, hey, we're going to go here now.
Okay, well, I feel like there's like a certain pressure for me to remember it, and I know that we're
no,
far out.
I just like talking about it. It's therapeutic for me to talk about Disney trips.
Okay,
you don't have to
I
remember
feel
it.
like we're so far out that when like I can't really recall what we're doing, I feel annoying asking you whenever it actually gets close, because I can't get excited about it until like we're basically in Orlando.
Until you're like through the gate where it says like welcome to Disney World.
And then I get like it my scale goes from like, I'm like imagining like a speedometer, and it goes from like here to like woo all the way to the other side.
Yeah,
so
you're ready to go. So we're gonna have a great interview coming up.
Yes.
But before we get into that, we're going to cover a few pieces of Disney news of the week. So over at Disneyland, the new Pixar Place Hotel opened. And like seeing pictures of the rooms and the lobby, like it looks amazing. Like the transformation's great. The rooms are awesome. The lamps in there are like the little Luxor Junior lamps. This looks like a really like awesome hotel to stay at. I think they did a really great job with it.
Yeah, I agree. The pictures are really phenomenal, and I think that it is a really cool nod to Pixar, and they themed it really well. Like, yeah, I think
did a good job.
It's nice because I feel like a lot of the knocks on at least Walt Disney World hotels as of late have been that they are sort of edging toward like modern, and
they look like Marriott, like they look like any hotel.
Yeah, they're very like
themed.
Marriott-y.
Yeah, whereas they're very themed at Disneyland.
Right, and so this Pixar hotel seems like a step back toward what they were doing before, which was that like hyper theming.
And there's less hotels at Disneyland. It's easier to theme these in a lot more detail when you have 3 hotels. Versus 30 at Walt Disney World. Speaking of Walt Disney World, Country Bear Jamboree officially closed for the updating that's going to be happening this year. It's supposed to be open later in 2024. It actually broke down, like somewhat fitting for like the final performances. So it did not have.
The Bears got some cold feet on those last performances.
They did. They couldn't go out.
You know what? I think that the one that's on the swing, she was afraid she'd fall off.
Exactly. Like they didn't want to be embarrassed at the end. So it was interesting. It was cool though. They did let people, because there was so many people. I mean, it was like an hours lines of people.
Crazy.
They did let them walk through and like take pictures, because all those people were there to see one of the final
pay their final
performances.
respects.
Yeah, like they wanted people to see this. What I thought was interesting though is how many people did come out for this, because I don't think, I mean, a lot of people like Country Bear Jamboree, but when you go there, it's not like there's ever really a big crowd.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't expecting this many people to come out just because it's closing again for, 10 months or whatever it's going to be closed for. And it kind of got me thinking, because it seems like lately, anytime anything closes, anything's done, there's a ton of people. And I kind of wonder now how much of it is people actually really like the attraction and want to ride it one last time versus I want to be the one to film it, put it on the internet, put it on social media.
Ooh.
Like, I feel like the, and being part of that, blogging, Disney kind of coverage people where, the key is making like content around stuff. But I feel like a lot of people go to these things just to like be the one to be there. Like, I want to be at the last performance of it, or I want to be at the very first one of the new one, versus I feel like this didn't happen before when they closed attractions.
Well, I think that this, I never really thought about that. You bring up a really good point, and I think it has like this very interesting intersection between I want to be the last one to film it, and also humans have this like very...
You also want to say you did it. I was there for the final performance or something like that.
Humans have like this very weird thing that I've noticed. Like, if you've watched any portion of the news or whatever, people want to like, no, this isn't tragic, but people want to connect themselves to like the death of something. Somebody might say, oh, I knew that person. It was a shame that something happened to them. And it's almost like Country Bears was in effect dying. And so they want to be able to say like, oh, but I was there for the final of this. And I was able to pay my respects and say goodbye.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
it is a classic attraction. It's sort of like an original attraction. I mean, it's been there a long time. So, I mean, I get, people have a lot of respect for it and they want to see it. But again, it's like the number of people that were there and just like the hours people were waiting. You wonder how much of that is just kind of artificially inflated.
I do have to say, like, maybe, and I've said this before, I'm not a huge fan of the Country Bears Jamboree, but I do understand the appeal of it because I love the Enchanted Tiki Room. And I feel like they hit a similar sweet spot where, it's like a musical show with like silly animatronics. And I love bears, but I don't know. Those ones freak me out.
Yeah, they're kind of odd.
But like the Tiki Room, if somebody said to me that's closing, I would be devastated. Like, I love that ride. And I think it's so, it's not even a ride. I love that attraction.
I mean, you're right. That's probably another one where it does not have a crowd ever. Like, you can always walk up to it. But if it announced it was closing, I'm sure, it would be 5 hours of people there. So I guess I get it. It's everybody's kind of coming out at one day, last time. So I'm just surprised they're going to turn this thing around and it's supposed to reopen in 2024. Like, it just seems like a very quick turnaround for them. So, like, I know they're filming new songs, or recording new songs rather, but it sounds like I don't think they can do that much in terms of like updating animatronics. Like, I don't know how much they're really going to change about the show. And again, if it's going to open in fall of 2024, I mean, that's maybe 10 months away. I mean, 10 months away, it's 2025, so it seems like a pretty quick turnaround for that.
Yeah, I agree.
We'll see. And then over at Tokyo Disneyland, they announced that there's going to be a new nighttime show. And they announced this is the first time Marvel's going to be included. And they have one picture, so it's going to be on Cinderella Castle, but it's going to incorporate Walt Disney Animation, Pixar, Marvel. First time they're having Marvel over there. It looks incredible. They talk about pyrotechnics, lights, special effects. I'm hoping it means drones. But I am so excited about this because I'm excited about anything Tokyo Disney does because they do things so great.
They do it
But
so
you're putting
grand.
Marvel in a nighttime show. It's on Cinderella Castle. It's going to open September 20th. But like, this is super exciting to me.
Yeah, I mean, Tokyo Disney they just do things right because, I mean, I think for them a lot of times money is no object, so
it seems like that. It really seems like that. Yeah,
really, really well, and so it is just top notch.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's just their shows and the quality of their shows are so high that anything they do, is going to be good. It's like a stamp of approval. You can give it a stamp of approval before it ever airs.
I'm really excited to see how this turns out. So I'm very excited about this. I can't wait to see what the show looks like.
I know when we talked about this, just in our normal lives, I was like, I just wish that Tokyo wasn't so far away because I would love to go there more often and check out these shows.
It's only a
And
12-hour plane ride.
yeah,
It's not that far
that's
away.
a pretty
I
far
know.
plane
I know.
ride.
Want to go back between this and Fantasy Springs and the new Beauty and the Beast attraction that opened a few years ago.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons to go back to
Right.
to Tokyo Disney. All right, that's it for news. So let's get into our interview with Becky. All right, well, Becky, welcome back to the show. Thanks for joining us again.
Thanks so much. I am very excited to be back.
Yes, and we're talking about trip planning today. And you actually just put a 2024 planning guide up. It was a massive guide
Yes.
on your website, Disney in Your Day, on Walt Disney World. And so one of the things you talk about there is just kind of the timeline of planning. And you talk about 8 to 12 months is kind of the sweet spot, I guess, for researching and booking for that. Now, to a lot of people, that may seem too far in advance. Oh, I'm booking a year in advance. What happens if a deal comes up? What happens if the dates I want, change, or I'm going to a after hours event and it's not the same day. So how do you kind of navigate that worry, but also planning far enough out in advance?
Yeah, so I will say that one of the nice things about booking with Disney is that they allow you to make changes to your reservations. You can basically change anything about your trip if you book it, as long as there's availability, at least the Disney portions of things. So if you book something and you put a deposit down and you book the resort tickets and then you want to change the dates, you can do that as long as the resort you want is available. If you want to switch to a different ticket type, add on days, take away days, change to a park hopper, let's add a dining plan now that we have dining plans back. You can do all of that after booking, after making your deposit, and even some people choose to pay for their whole trip before the final payment is due. Even if you've paid off everything, you can still make changes as long as it's before 30 days without any sort of penalty. So I always say if you have even a general idea, at least book something so you have it, and then if things change, you can adapt with it.
Right. And I think that's probably one of the benefits too of booking an entire vacation package, because I believe if you book the tickets separately, they're non-refundable. Is that correct? But if you book it with the vacation package, you have more flexibility in changing.
That is correct. You definitely do. And you have more flexibility in terms of just making payments. I know for so many people, especially families that want to do their big trip, it's a lot of money. And they don't want to pay thousands of dollars up front. And so the nice thing about booking a package is your deposit is $200. And then you can make payments if you'd like as you go, or just pay the final payment 30 days beforehand for a package. If you book your tickets separately, you're going to have to pay for them up front at the time of purchase. And as you said, they're not refundable. I will say they are changeable. You can change the dates on tickets after you purchase them. So if you do need to move your trip and you bought tickets, you can change it. You'll have to pay the price difference if there's an increase in price, which there typically is if you're pushing it out like a year or something like that.
I'll say, how much flexibility do you have on that, on changing dates on tickets? I imagine there's some sort of limit to what Disney's going to let you adjust to.
I'm gonna say they're pretty flexible as long as you're willing to pay
really?
whatever
Okay.
the difference would be as if you were booking it. I have had clients who have had to push trips out, who've done packages, done tickets only, and we've kept pushing them back a year, another year, another year. I mean,
Oh,
indefinitely,
really?
pretty
Okay.
much. The exception to that would be special event tickets, things like the Halloween or Christmas parties. Those are somewhat different.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good to know. So as long as you plan to go eventually at some point, you're kind of okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, and then I guess the special ticketed events, obviously Disney has a policy in place because weather is a big issue, and especially in Florida, hurricane season. If you're going during Halloween, that can kind of be that time. So if somebody's worried about that, if there is a hurricane or something like that, it's canceled. I think Disney offers they have a policy around refunds
Oh
and
yeah,
things
if
for
it's
that
something
too. So
outside of your control, like if Disney cancels a
right.
party, then they will definitely refund you that or offer to transfer to different dates depending on your situation. There Disney is so understanding for the most part. And I will say, even when their official policy says one thing, at least from the travel agent, and I've been able to make some extra magic for my clients just through the kindness of cast members. They've waived change fees for me before when I've called and explained. I had clients who got in a car accident the week before their trip. So, like, it was
Jeez.
nothing,
Oh.
too terrible, but we had a broken leg, and, so there's a lot, and they were not prepared to go.
Hmm.
And Disney was really awesome with moving everything to the next year. They had Halloween party tickets. They are letting them apply those to tickets for next year.
Wow.
So they are typically very understanding, but if you just say, well, I don't want to go anymore, you're not gonna get your money back.
Right, right. Well, that's good to know that.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah.
Mm.
What would you say is the best time of year for somebody to visit? So if you could choose any time of year, when's the best time? What are those sweet
I
spots?
mean, there's the best time for like me personally when I like to go. It all depends on so many factors, right? It's like, are you looking to go when the weather's nicer? Because it's Florida, so it's always kind of a crapshoot there. But like if you're like, I can't stand being hot, like overly hot, then obviously don't go in the summer. So it depends on like how important is the weather to you, how important is lower crowds, or are there certain events and things that you want to go to? Those are all of the factors that I would consider. I know that a lot of people say they want to go when the crowds are lower and prices are lower. Those two things go together, luckily. What doesn't work is when they say, I want to go when crowds are low and prices are low and it's Christmas. Well, that doesn't happen,
Right,
No.
right? So
right.
it's like, well, which
Mm-mm.
is more important to you, going close to Christmas or having low crowds, So it's all a balance. Me personally, I would rather go when there's lower crowds and it's more affordable.
I agree with that.
Mhm.
So like when would that be? Like when is the kind of sweet spot for there being low
Yeah, so we've
crowds?
seen some interesting changes in the past couple of years with people's approach to visiting and the times of year that they go. The one thing that has stayed pretty consistent is September has always just been pretty much the lowest crowd time of year. I think with kids starting to go back to school, people don't want to
Mm-hmm.
pull them out right in the beginning of the school year. You still
Yeah.
Right.
have extremely hot weather in September. And then there's also just the hurricane season. You mentioned that a little bit earlier with hurricanes and all. September is kind of prime hurricane season, so you take a little bit of a risk there with that. And that's why I also recommend travel insurance for uh, pretty much any trip, but especially one where you're going to be spending a lot of money. And like I said earlier, the nice thing with Disney is a lot of their policies are very reasonable, but it's that time period when you're getting up to like a few days before you leave and something has to change where having insurance is really, really helpful. September is my favorite time to go for those reasons, but we've also seen lower crowds lately in the summer, quite honestly. I think that
Mm.
people don't want to be in the heat. They are more flexible.
They don't want to like swim through the air,
No, it's for
you
some
know.
reason they don't like it when it's like 105 degrees and crazy humid.
They
Yeah.
I don't know.
they don't want to feel like they're in a
I don't
rainforest.
get it. They could just immerse themselves in the experience of Animal Kingdom. But um, no, it's the summer has been getting a lot less crowded. I have gone fairly often in the summer, the past few years, July, August, and been su pleasantly surprised in the crowd sense. Obviously prepared for the weather, but the other thing is a lot depends on when Easter falls during the year. So, like this year, we have an early Easter, which means March is going to be a very busy month and the beginning of April. But you're going to see like the end of April and the beginning of May as being really nice times to go. That's my prediction, at least, in terms of crowds. And then once you start getting closer to Memorial Day, the crowds will pick back up again a little bit.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean that kind of leads into one of my questions, and I think you answered a little bit, but
yeah.
I was kind of just like looking at hotel prices. Even though we don't necessarily are actively planning a trip, I'm always checking like
What are you
wait
talking
times.
about? We are always
Yeah.
actively
It's
not
just a
planning
state
a
of
trip.
being at this point.
Right. Right.
It's like all the memes you see on Instagram where it's just like the stages of booking a Disney trip, and it's like you don't have one, you book one, and then you get to the part where you're leaving the park and you're like, you're booking another one.
There was one point last year where I didn't have like a trip that I'd booked yet, and I was like, wait a second, what happened? How is there not a trip on my calendar? So then I added one.
There's always one you're working on. Yeah, exactly.
You had to fix that real fast.
But so I was looking up hotel prices, and what I was kind of shocked by was like Pop Century, Art of Animation in like November, like fall, like typically the slower times that you would think of. So like not Christmas, like not Thanksgiving, obviously, but like around then used to be slower. You know, it was 260, 300 plus a night, when over the summer, I think because they're running like specials and stuff, then, you know, it's down, it's still like 200, maybe 250, but it's a lot cheaper in the summer, where I feel like a few years ago it was completely flipped. Like you could go the first week of December, there was nobody there, hotel prices were cheap, everything was cheap, everybody was going in the summer. I kind of feel like what you said earlier, where I think people realized, hey, it's way too hot in July, let's go during the slow time, because everybody's trying to find that slow time, and now that's become the expensive time, and it's almost flipped. So I guess you are seeing that kind of as well.
Yeah, so I'll talk about the hotel pricing in just a second, but on that same note, I will say I think there's a couple of common misconceptions when planning Disney, and the most common, I will say, is the month of October. I will put this out there right now. October is one of the busiest months to visit Disney overall, like the entire month. It's going to be packed and it's going to be expensive, and you're most likely not going to get a discount if you want to go in October. And the amount of people that contact me and say, I want to go when crowds are really low in October. And I say, can you go in September? And most of them, I will price both and send them over. Most of them will be like, you know what, we can go in September. Even like the end of September. People love Halloween. They want to go for the Halloween party. Now, yes, it starts in August.
August, yeah.
But people don't think about Halloween. Like, I think people want to be at the Halloween party in October. They want to be at Food and Wine Festival in October. They just want it to be there when it's a little bit cooler. Everybody wants to be there in October now. So that, I think, is one of the most surprising things for a lot of people to find out.
Yeah. I think Disney's worked a lot too. Like you mentioned, Food and Wine, the Halloween. Like they've, I think, realized too that if we have these festivals, like if we shift things around, we can move people and kind of spread them out. So to your point, they've done all this stuff over the years. Now everybody wants
too well.
That's
exactly.
That's why they do Food and Wine when they started it. It was because October was a slower time, so they put something in to draw people there, and now it's one of the busiest.
So now let's get our crystal balls, be like Madame Leo does. Do you think that they move Food and Wine eventually and try to make it not?
All right, no, I don't think they will move it, but I have a theory about Epcot festivals in general. And I think they're going to add a new one this year. I know, this is like a big...
This is like a hot take.
I know.
You heard it here first.
Because they've shortened Flower and Garden.
Yeah, that's exactly why.
Okay.
So Flower and Garden had in the past gone until basically July, and a week later, Food and Wine started, more or less.
Right. Okay.
We're looking at a potential like 2-month gap in the summer where there is no festival happening, and that has been unheard of in Epcot in recent years. So I wonder, for what you're just saying, if they're going to add like some sort of summer festival for Epcot, do it in like June, July, beginning of August maybe, before they switch to Food and Wine. So start Food and Wine a little bit later. And do like a summer festival, because it has been much lower crowds.
Have they announced, is the new, I guess, kind of center of the park, like I know they're building like a festival center. It's not to the scale that it was going to be. Is that going to be ready this year?
Yeah, I think that to the best of my recollection, it is this year, and that's the extent of like what we've gotten.
Okay.
But yeah, sometime this year.
Because that may play into it too, to your point of, even if it's maybe not this year, like next year, I could see them as that opens, hey, it's a new festival, new space, like something to kind of change it up there, keep it interesting.
Hey, I have a prediction to go along with your prediction now, because this is fun. We didn't make any real predictions at the beginning of this year, so I think I'm going to piggyback off of you. they're going to add a new Run Disney race too.
Ooh.
They want to draw some people in the summer. So it's going to be real hot. But hey, they start those races at 5
I don't know.
a.m.
Yeah.
People
I
might
don't know about
die.
that one. Yeah.
They won't add anything.
They would have had to announce
long.
that by now.
I mean, they will. Okay,
maybe in the future.
but maybe they announce they're going
I
to do
feel
it
like
this
they
year
would
for
have
next
to
year.
be like get like a billion treadmills and a giant indoor space or something in
Yeah,
the summer.
yeah, do it inside.
I think it's too hot.
I mean, some people
Yeah.
would do it. There's the people that do
I
like
would do it.
extreme
Oh, yeah.
runs.
You got
that
you
would
got
be
the Badwater
involved in-
135 where people do it in Death Valley.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, come
people
on.
would do it. I don't think Disney would want
Yeah.
to take the risk.
They wouldn't
the
want to do
They don't want the
liability
liability.
risk, even though we signed those
Right,
waivers.
right.
They still wouldn't want the potential bad publicity, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
I-
shortened that half marathon when
I think
Yeah.
that prediction
Me
is bad. I think Becky's got a good one. I think yours is a bad
they
prediction.
said my stuff was bad, Becky, and I'm sad now.
Maybe you could come up with a prediction for what the theme of this new festival would be, because I don't know what they would do for it. You know, we could think about that.
Okay, I'll brainstorm, and then
Yeah.
I will get back to you on that one.
Good.
Kind of going back to like planning and timing. The other thing you kind of talk about is Genie Plus and starting to look at that about 3 weeks before the trip. And Disney's been changing like Genie Plus a lot. Do they still sell that ahead of time, or is that's day of now?
Right now, the answer is no. Again, prediction time. The answer will be yes. They will be selling it ahead of time again, probably at some point this year. They have kind of acknowledged that, well, like you said, they've been changing it a lot. They know that there's things that people are unhappy with. There's definitely a good sized group of people that would prefer to plan these things ahead of time and not do everything that morning and stress out the day of all throughout the day. I think they just get a lot of complaints and negative feedback. The way
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you
is.
think they go to kind of like fast passes where you can pick some ahead of time too, or
I think
do you
they're
still
gonna.
see that
I
being
think
kind
they're
of like day
gonna
of?
do what they should have just done in the first place, which is do exactly what they did for Fast Pass Plus, but charge you money for it.
I mean, that seemed to be like the thing. Like it worked fine, and that's how, I mean, kind of somewhat what they had in Disneyland with their Max
Yeah.
Pass, where you paid for it. Now, obviously, those fast passes were day of, but like that was when they had paper fast passes, so you saved from like running around. But it's like, yeah, everybody liked fast pass, so if you want to make money, I mean, we obviously liked it when it was free, but like, just charge $20 for that and let us pick 3 rides beforehand, and then go from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when people are buying Genie Plus, it's like, unless you, like, I feel like I could teach a course on how to use it. Like, that's how complicated it is. Like, you have to come to my
Yeah.
school of Genie Plus to learn how to use it.
Do you recommend
Please
it?
make that a blog entry. Becky's School of Genie Plus.
And
I am here for
it's
it.
crazy. It should not be that complicated. And I think that one of the things that happens is, you have enough people that aren't going to even realize that they need to put that much effort into learning it, don't really understand how it works, pay however much money it is now, and then get 1 ride or 2 rides for the day and feel like they've been ripped off.
So do you recommend it? I mean, do you think it's good for people to get, or I mean, kind of where do you stand? I think we've done it one time. Like we don't necessarily use it a lot.
I think it depends on which park you're in, where you're going, and what you want to do. Again, like most things with Disney, it comes down to like what are your top priorities. If you want to do a lot of the big like headliner rides in Magic Kingdom, then yeah, I would say get it because otherwise you're gonna miss a lot of time waiting in line. On the other hand, it's like if you're in Epcot and you only want to do like a couple of rides because you're busy eating at the festivals. I mean, it's not really worth it. I would say what I tend to do more often is do the individual lightning lanes. Those are going to be for like the biggest attractions in each park. So I'll pay to go on Cosmic Rewind or Tron or whatever it is.
And that's what I think we've kind of said too, is it depends what park you want to go on. It really depends. You kind of have to do that like analysis of, like you said, am I going to get 2 rides out of it today? Am I going to get 4 rides? Like what that is. And I almost feel like as Disney raises the price of Genie Plus, that in my mind, some of the reason they're doing that is because it almost then becomes cheaper to just add an extra day on to the park ticket. Because if you're at 4-day ticket, a 5-day ticket's like $20 more, and it's like you're almost better just staying an extra day than paying $30, a person or something like that for Genie Plus every day of your trip. And it's like I kind of feel like there's some of that too, of like if they make it more expensive, they'll just keep you there longer, and then they'll get your money on
I
merch
don't
and
even
food and
know
all
if
that other sort of
I
stuff.
don't know if they were smart enough to think about that, but I feel like that's a really good point. Like I don't know, like maybe they intended that, but regardless, I think you're right. I think there are certainly people who say, well, at this point it's cheaper to just stay another day and like wait in some lines than buy Genie Plus every day.
Especially if you look at it every day, like
Mm.
when they used to do it as part of the package, and it's like, okay, you can add Genie Plus for your whole thing. It's $300 a person. You're like, well, why don't I just stay an extra
Yeah.
day? Like it's so much cheaper. So
Yeah.
Scooch my way a little bit. I feel like Green Goblin peeking over your shoulder is really freaky. That's what I'm laughing about over
I'm
here.
talking to the three of you.
Look at him.
Oh my God, he's pretty creepy. Look at him.
Oh boy. Okay, sorry.
No, but yeah, so I think that people want to know if they're going to pay for something, they want to make sure they're getting their money's worth. And if they're only able to get on one or two rides, they don't feel that way, even if they're not paying as much as like Universal's charging for the Express Pass. It's more of a value proposition than like a saving money thing. And I think if they do go back to like how FastPass Plus was done, where you can book your rides 60 days ahead of time, and you get to book like 3 rides every day, that kind of evens that playing field. You know exactly what you're getting, basically.
Any current offers, or like how do you navigate the offers that there are?
Yeah, they're super fun, right? So one of the things, and actually this will go back to what Joe said earlier about people wondering when they should book. Is it going to be cheaper later? And one of the nice things again about Disney is that if a discount comes out after you've booked that you're eligible for, you can apply the discount to your existing reservation and save that money. So I do have a whole blog post that's titled Why You Shouldn't Wait for a Discount, and it lists all the
okay,
reasons why that is not such a great idea. When discounts do come out, there's a lot of things to be aware of because uh, in typical Disney fashion, they don't make it necessarily straightforward and easy to understand. They will often drop several discounts at a time with different qualifications, different dates, different resorts. You get different things, right? The one they did most recently was there was a free dining offer, which people love the free dining, but there was also a percentage discount. And people are always, I want free dining. Well, sometimes you price it out. Like if you get the room discount, if it's 30% off, like your whole package, and then you add dining on for the regular price, that could be cheaper than the free dining offer, all
free dining.
depending on what
Okay,
you're booking. So that would be one of my first things to suggest is to compare whatever offers they have at the same time and price all of them and see which one actually is going to be the best deal for you. Another thing about discounts, like I said, is that there's a lot of criteria for them. When Disney releases a discount and they say, this discount is good for most nights from, June to September at these resorts, and they list, all these resorts, and you think, oh, well, I'm going and staying at Caribbean Beach in July, so I fit all of this. Where's my discount?
It says most.
It's not even that. Like it could be for your exact nights. Like, where's my discount? Well, guess what? Disney is tricky with their wording. So just because the resort you're staying at falls into the dates that they're offering it, that doesn't mean all resorts have the discount for those dates. They're pricing
okay,
based on inventory and what they need to fill, right? So Caribbean Beach, they might need to fill rooms at Caribbean Beach in August, but they're good for July. So they won't offer the discount during that month at that resort, you know?
okay. So kind of supply and demand
Yeah,
there.
so I
Yeah.
would say again, unless you're really sold on like the resort that you chose, if you were debating between them, price out a different resort and see if that one qualifies. It might not.
typically how far in advance does Disney release their discount? So again, if you're booking, let's say you do your deposit 12 months out, because again, it's like, hey, $200 down, kind of low risk there. When can you expect to kind of see, am I going to get a discount, or hey, maybe I need to move and look at a different day here?
I would say if it's 4 months before your trip and there's no discounts for your dates, then you're not going to see anything. Usually that's they release them for like blocks of time at once. So, but it's usually about that far ahead of time would be like the earliest date. I mean, there's also always times that are basically never going to have discounts available. So, depending on when you're going, just being aware of that if you're going during Christmas week, the week
I was gonna
between
say the
Christmas
big
and New
Christmas
Year.
discount,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Maybe someday, maybe it'll all shift again. You never know, right? But, but
Right.
no, Easter week is not never gonna you're never gonna get a discount. And quite honestly, like
Okay.
Hmm.
this year, like most of the month of March is not seeing anything because of spring breaks and Easter all happening. Those are probably the big ones that I can think of. But March is somewhat a surprising one to people, but spring breaks definitely play into that.
Now we've talked a lot, and I think a lot of the focus here has been on planning a trip to Walt Disney World. There's obviously another park in the U.S., Disneyland. um, does kind of the timeline, all that sort of stuff, does that apply to Disneyland as well, or are there some kind of nuances if you're looking to go to California versus Florida?
Yeah, so Disneyland does have some different approaches, I would say. Some of their crowds and busier times are going to be different than what you see at Disney World for various reasons. In particular, you might see Disneyland that much more crowded in June because they do grad nights. They have a big uh, local local kids coming out, and so those parks can get really crowded during that month. They also have so many off-property hotels that are within walking distance that I would say I don't typically see as many Disneyland discounts or like as much discounted in terms of how much you save.
Yeah, their hotels are pretty
Yeah, their
expensive at
hotels are really
Disneyland because they only have a
expensive.
couple on property.
Exactly. So it's like if
Yeah,
you want to stay at one of their hotels, then there's only so many rooms. They are probably doing okay at selling them. So you're not going to see
right.
as many
Yeah.
discounts. But if you're looking to save money, of course, there's a lot more hotel options right there.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Everything's very walkable. We
Yeah.
had a listener, Ben, on Instagram. He reached out about like, hey, can you talk about like the transportation options at Disneyland? And I think a lot of people, if you're familiar with Walt Disney World, you're thinking,
Your
I need a
feet.
bus, I need a monorail. Like I'm so far away. Whereas, I mean, Disneyland, your transportation is your feet. Like you can
Yep.
basically just walk
Yeah, I've
everywhere.
never not walked. Like I've never done anything else from Disneyland. They do have the monorail there, but it's more for fun because it's right in downtown Disney that you get on it. Like it's it's right there.
I mean, I'm sure you can get an Uber if there's somebody who couldn't
Yeah, and some
walk
people
Right.
and like
do
get there.
stay a little bit further away. I will say the last time that I was there, I also went to an Angels game. And so the baseball stadium is not too far, but it's not walkable from Disneyland.
It's runnable. We
And so
ran past
that's
it.
actually what I was gonna say is like we were like
Yes, it
looking at
is.
it. I know, 'cause when I did the half marathon in Disneyland, I was like, well, I know it's not very far because I ran there and back.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. You can run past it, but yeah, I wouldn't
Yeah,
want
I
to
didn't
walk
think I
there.
wanted to
So
walk that. So it was super easy to get an Uber or Lyft or whatever it was that we did.
right. Yeah, I think that's your biggest transportation issue is just how do you get from the airport to Disneyland? I mean, the closest airports are
Yeah.
like 20 minutes away. But again, there's Uber now or Lyft. Like it makes it easy.
Yeah,
But
it
then
does.
once you're kind of there, it's
Yeah,
it's easy to get
the
around.
one that is hard that we had a hard time with is if you wanted to go from Disneyland to go to Universal
Yes,
Studios
that's far
because
away.
they are
Yeah.
pretty far apart and then you want to try to beat traffic. So getting somebody that wants to make that
That
drive is
traffic is
difficult.
not fun.
Yeah, it could be a couple
No.
hours
Yeah.
with traffic in there. So
What would you take? New York City traffic or
Oh,
LA traffic?
I don't know. I think LA is worse, quite honestly.
Oh my
It's
goodness.
it's
tough.
it's so spread
It
out. It's just
is,
like for
yeah.
such a long
Yeah.
distance. You know, New York, you're going a couple blocks, but you know you can almost walk. So All right, kind of going back to Walt Disney World, in your guide again, you mentioned a lot of like the new attractions that have come in the past year, or like upcoming attractions that are coming to Walt Disney World, restaurants, different things. What are you most looking forward to, or like what's your recommendation of like the new stuff that you've been on, and kind of like what are you maybe most looking forward to coming up?
I'm very excited about this. Let's talk about food, please.
Food, yeah. Okay, so I will say in terms of what's kind of come out or opened recently that I've done or haven't done but would like to do, in terms of food, I did get to go to Summer House on the Lake, which just opened in December.
Oh, okay.
Did you get a cookie?
I did. I got 2 cookies. They were good. I still think Gideon's is better, but I didn't have to like get in a virtual queue for it. So that part was nice. But I was by myself, which is always disappointing just because I can't eat that much food by myself. So I still ordered like way too much, but it
You gotta
was
try a
and it
little bit
was
of everything.
good. So I would love to go
Yeah.
back because the whole menu just sounded really good. But I had the guacamole because it was like highly recommended and it was pretty good. But I don't know that I would go out of my way to get it again. But I had the I'm trying to remember. It was like these tuna wonton type appetizer thing. Doing a terrible job
Ooh.
explaining it, but it was really excellent. And a lot of that menu just
Ooh,
sounded
that
really
sounds
good. So I got to
delicious.
go back there and try more stuff. That's one thing, definitely.
Was it sweet, or was it
It was
savory, or was it
it
spicy?
had a little bit of spiciness to it. It was kind I would say like Asian influences, probably like almost in a sushi sort of way. But it was yeah, it was really good. Um I am also, in terms of what I'm looking forward to, and I mean, it's probably the biggest thing coming, but I am very excited about Tiana's Bayou Adventure opening. I love Splash Mountain. It was my favorite ride, like as a kid when I went growing up. However, I love Princess and the Frog. It's one of my favorite Disney movies. So if you're gonna redo it, I'm so excited to see that. I
Hmm.
just am happy because that the basic infrastructure is still gonna be there, so I still get to do like the part I love of Splash Mountain and have hopefully
Right.
great music and stuff uh, during it. So I'm very excited for
Yeah,
that.
Do you
that
think
is
we get
exciting.
any big announcements at D23? I mean, Universal just kind of unveiled Epic Universe today. Do you think Disney has any answer for it this year?
Officially,
Yeah.
officially,
Yeah.
they didn't really say anything new,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, do I think that Disney should or will they? Because they should.
They should,
I don't think so. I
100%. Yeah.
think we'll probably me and let them prove me wrong, please. But I think we're probably going to get a lot more that's more like the blue sky. Like we're thinking this will happen eventually. I think if anything happens, it will be Animal Kingdom. It'll be Dino Land. I think that's the most likely one to happen next. They've already, they've already shut down a lot of that area. Like it's kind of sad. And so it'd be a pretty easy one, I think, to do. I think that in terms of like announcements and stuff or things that we'll be seeing in the next year, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more effort made to entice people to stay at the resorts. They keep building new resorts or, adding new DVC or whatever it is. And as we just talked about, they're not necessarily selling all the inventory they have all the time. Universal's announcement, people are very excited about Epic Universe.
yes,
Hmm.
yeah,
They've lost most of I'll be honest, like Disney has lost a lot of their selling points to keep people on property at this point. They got rid of a lot of things that made that very appealing if you were going to Disney for 4 days and thinking about going over to Universal for a day or two. When everything was included at Disney, it was so much easier. And now it's like, well, maybe I'll go stay at Universal for a couple of
yeah.
days.
Hmm.
I literally just texted our friends about that today, about how maybe we should book a trip
Hmm.
to stay at some of these new Universal hotels, and then we can take an Uber down to Disney for a day or
Oh yeah,
two.
like my Disney friends
Like,
texted me the same thing. They said, "So we're doing Universal in 2025, right?" Well, and I'll
Oh,
tell you,
yeah.
yeah,
when I'm going down in February for Princess and Epic Universe isn't even open, But I am doing a split stay. I'm staying at Disney for the first 4 days, and then I'm spending 2 nights at Universal because you get a lot of extra perks from staying at their hotels. And there's a lot of cool stuff to do at Universal.
Yeah, we've never actually stayed at Universal. This is a Disney, mostly a Disney podcast, but what's your favorite Universal hotel to stay at?
I will say there's a lot of different ones and keep building more too. It's amazing because they don't even have the land that Disney does, but they're making it work. In February, I'm staying at Cabana Bay, which I haven't stayed at yet, so I'm excited to try that one out. I would say I really loved Sapphire Falls. That's kind of like their moderate level resort. It was beautiful. It has the water taxi that you can take to and from the park, but it's walkable. It was not that far to walk. I mostly walked from there. And like the pricing was reasonable, all things,
Hmm.
Orlando reasonable.
Yeah.
Right,
Like on
right.
Yeah.
property, getting in to the park early is a great perk. But if you can swing it, staying in one of their, I think they call them premier hotels, but basically their equivalent of deluxe, the benefits you get from staying there are like make the cost worth it. They include their express pass, which is
Okay.
their,
Mm,
cut the line. And the
Right.
way theirs works, if you haven't used it or anybody listening isn't familiar, the way that theirs works is that you have a pass, you walk up to the line, you just show your pass, and you just walk up on the short line. You don't have to schedule anything, you don't have to like plan it, you just walk up. And it is expensive. Yeah, and it's expensive. If you buy it like, separately, it's as a ticket add-on, it's over $100 typically. Busier seasons,
It's
you're
almost as
pushing
much as the ticket
200. It's more
sometimes.
than the ticket sometimes if it's really busy. And so for that reason, not as many people have it, so those lines are always short. And if you stay in one of their premier hotels, you get that included for everybody that's staying in your room for your whole trip. Like that's
wow.
huge.
Wow. That
Yeah.
is huge. I mean, we have done that. Like I think the last time we went, we got an express pass
Hmm.
and the price is kind of worth it because what you're able to ride is like what you would
Yeah.
probably be able to ride in several days stay.
Hmm.
So even though you're paying that extra $100, really you don't have to stay there for an extra day to get in all the rides.
Yeah, and I really personally like the Royal Pacific of their premier hotels. I did get a very unique and spoiled experience when I was there, though, because we had gotten off, it was in November when we cruised on the Wish, and we were staying at Universal for a couple of days afterwards, and there had been a hurricane while we were out at sea. Our whole itinerary, I think
Oh,
we had
Jeez.
talked about this
fun.
once before, our whole
I
itinerary
think we did.
Yeah.
changed.
Yeah.
And so the hurricane kind of like was hanging out and we were in Mexico, but we came back and there was still obviously people that hadn't been able to get their flights and all of this. And because of that, Universal's hotels were like the rooms were booked because they let people stay basically. So when I checked in, they
Okay.
said, "We upgraded you." And I said,
Oh wow.
"Oh, awesome." I go to the room. It is their presidential suite. It, I mean, it was insane. It was myself and my husband.
Oh.
There's two of us, and it is like an apartment basically. Like go up
Oh
there
What?
and
wow.
there's the bedroom, there's like three bathrooms, there's a huge like dining conference table that could seat like a dozen people. It was the
Oh.
Could have a board meeting in it or something.
seriously.
My.
And I have like some local friends and stuff. I was like, I feel like I should be calling people and like having a party or something with this. Like, I don't even know what
Right,
to
right.
do with this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get
Oh
to
my
see.
gosh, do you sleep in a different room every night?
Yeah, yeah. It was just amazing. It was.
You should have done like a Cribs episode, like,
Yeah, welcome to my crib.
living
Yeah.
a crib.
And that it also included
Pretended
like
that you paid for
their
it.
lounge or whatever, the like
Oh, like a
concierge
concierge
lounge.
service.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Oh my
she okay?
goodness.
Yeah. Well, that's
That's
Oh
nice.
yeah.
Yeah. I would say
amazing.
you're never gonna top that.
No,
So if you go
no.
back, it's gonna be a major
So I mean,
letdown.
I had
Yeah.
a great time at the Royal Pacific. I'd highly recommend that. No, but I've stayed in one
Yeah.
of their standard rooms too, and it's they're really nice. That one is usually also the cheapest of their three premier. So if you're looking to like get the Express Pass value,
The benefits.
it's a good choice.
Any other thoughts or recommendations just on like planning your trip or things to kind of consider?
Yeah, I think I always come back to prioritizing being such an important thing when planning your Disney trip. You have to decide what's most important to you because there's so much at Disney that you can't do everything. So if you want to go during a certain festival or go for a Run Disney event, like if something like that is important to you, then that's going to have to take priority over maybe like the weather because you just it happens during this time. That's what it is. If you don't necessarily care that much, like then is the lower crowds more important to you? And that's where I typically would recommend to start if you have no idea like when you want to travel. Obviously, I would recommend using a travel agent, but even if you don't want to, just do your research because some of the things that we mentioned, there are things that aren't the same as planning other trips, right? There's a lot of things that Disney has that you wouldn't see elsewhere, or, you'd think October would be a slower time and it's really not. So, you know, do your research. That's the best advice I can give, I think. And I still think, despite what I was just saying, unless you are thinking about like spending some time at Universal for like a couple of days, I still say stay on Disney property. I think it's still worth it, and I really do think what we're
Mm.
going to see in the next year is more value being added back into your stay. If you want to go predictions again, I think Magical Express or something like it is going to come back. I think that's
That
going
would
to
be great.
happen.
That would be great.
Oh,
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
love
Yeah,
Yeah,
that.
they're gonna need something to entice people
that's
Yeah.
to
I'm not
exactly
stay.
gonna
right.
lie though, I do like taking the Uber because I
So
hate to
fast.
wait.
Yeah, I know, me
That
too.
that wait when you walk up to the bus and they make you wait in those lines sometimes, like if you hit it wrong, and then you're just sitting there and like I am like a child. Like I'm like bouncing
Yeah.
up and down and I'm like, when is it gonna come? When are we gonna leave? When they gonna let me on the
Or
bus?
like,
And then you sit on it sometimes for like
yes.
15, 20 minutes and you're like, can we please leave? I have food I need to eat. I have rides I need to ride. Let's go.
That's the for me, it's like sometimes I've just walked right up and like gotten on the bus and I sit down and there's like two other people and I'm like, "Oh no, we're gonna have to wait till like they fill this bus until more people get here." So, yeah, and it's also
Yeah.
That's why they're fun cartoons to
I
watch.
know, I do love
That's why they're little
and
TVs.
yeah, I do
I do like the cartoons.
Yeah.
that part is nice, but it's been
Silver
like
lining.
it's been a perk too in some ways. I've looked at flights and been like, oh, this one gets in kind of late, and I'm like, but if I Uber, I know it will only take this long to get there, and I'm not spending an extra
Right. You know
hour at
Yeah.
the
exactly how much time.
airport.
Yeah.
So, and it's easier when it's
Right.
if you've got just like a couple and you don't have a whole family that you would need to get like a bigger Uber and all that because that comes
Right.
into play.
I
Yeah.
mean, the nice thing about the Magical Express was the luggage. I mean, that was
Yeah.
really the key. Like
Oh,
if you have a big
yes.
family, if you're traveling with a lot of luggage,
Yeah,
the fact that
that's
Disney
true.
just takes it and you don't have to worry about it, it shows up at your room,
Yeah.
and then they take it back to the
Oh, I
airport. I mean,
forgot about
that
that.
was the key. I
Yeah,
think,
that
of
was
it. So
awesome.
that made waiting on the bus a little bit worth it. So
Seriously. So I would
Yeah.
say still stay on Disney property if you can because we're gonna see more added perks. If you're staying deluxe, you get the evening extended hours, which are really nice. The 30-minute early entry makes a huge difference, beating, the off-property guests. And like I said, I think they're just gonna continue to increase the value. I'm sure if they do Genie Plus planning in advance, I have a feeling that there'll be also benefits to resort guests in terms of booking
so
those too.
staying on property,
hmm
yeah, makes a
Oh.
lot of sense. All right, well, if our listeners are interested in booking a trip with you or reading more from your blog, how's best for them to kind of reach out to
Yeah,
you?
so my blog, my website is Disney in Your Day, which is just disneyinyourday.com. And I've got lots and lots, like over 10 years worth now of posts and writing that I do try to keep updated when I can. But lots of information. If you go to there, you can find a link at the top if you want to use travel agent services. That'll send you to a form you can fill out, or you can email me. It's beckygat castledreamstravel.com. Something else I'll mention for people who are big planners and want to kind of stay organized, I do have an Etsy shop. You can find a link to that on my blog as well, and I sell basic planning printables, so you can print them and it has like charts and stuff like that of all the important information that you need to keep track of and advice. And it's been a really, I started making them for myself because there was so much going on, and then people were like, that looks really good, can I like use that? And then I was like, oh, maybe people would actually buy this, and they do, which is awesome.
Would buy them. Okay.
So
Yeah,
Great.
that is
plus
awesome.
now they're PDF editable too. That's something I did this year, so that if I'm still an old school like paper and pen person, like I'm gonna print it and write it out, but I did now make them, you can edit right in the PDF if you'd rather, and just save it on your device or print it after typing or whatever. So that can be really useful too, I think. So you can find a link to that on my blog, and my shop name for that is Magic in Your Day.
Oh, nice tie-in.
Yeah.
Perfect. And we will put links to all that in the descriptions as well if people are interested.
Awesome.
So, well, Becky, this has been great. Appreciate a lot of like great knowledge on trip planning. A lot of good things.
It's always insightful.
Yeah. So hopefully everybody listening, start planning for 2025. It's a year out. Time to start planning. So never too soon to plan your next Disney trip.
Once we hit June, that's usually about when the packages will start to go on sale for 2025. So that's your time.
It's gonna be around the corner before
I know,
you know
seriously.
it. So. All right. Well, thanks, Becky.
Awesome.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
All right, want to thank Becky again for being on the show. And again, if you're interested in reading more of Becky's blogs or using her for a travel agent, we will put links in the description to all of her information. But that wraps up the show for this week. Want to thank everybody again for listening. If you've not done so, please leave us a rating or a review. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast. It really helps, and we really appreciate it.
Thanks for lending us your ears.
Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you here next Monday.
Bye-bye.